Alright, raise your hand if you've ever planned your week, your month, or year, only for life to turn around and say, oh, you thought it would be like that? Think again, you absolute loser. I see you, I hear you, and same. We've all got big dreams, maybe even a to-do list longer than an epic poem, but life keeps throwing curveballs, or, let's be real, sometimes actual bloody avalanches our way. So here I am being a bit more open. At the end of November, just before Christmas period started, I was dealt a huge blow when I found out that I was losing up to 50% of my income in the new year. On top of that, my PhD project had changed topic entirely, and the change gave me horrible prospects. As it stands, with the new direction, it's unlikely I'll pass this year and progress on to third year of the PhD, let alone ever finish it. So there I was, just sitting there, juggling deadlines, dogs, and failing business, and an explosive existential crisis, and everything fell out of my control. I cried a lot, to be quite honest with you, and I thought to myself, who are these weirdos who have 5-year plans? Because I can barely keep my weekly goals in track. How do I plan for anything when it feels like chaos is in charge of my life? Well, this is how I'm going to do it. Okay, I think we can all agree that life is never truly predictable, even if you're one of those very lucky ones who have a stable career and a stable family life. The less stability you have, the rockier the waters always feel, making long-term goals seemingly completely out of reach. We know intellectually that planning is essential for any progress to be made, but simultaneously, over-planning can lead to frustration when things go wrong, and in my experience, they always do. Then, when things go wrong, I end up developing a debilitating sense of fear which paralyses me from starting anything new or even starting again, for fear that any mistakes I make will eat further into my already borrowed time. I've lost so much time already. If I make another mistake, I'll end up falling deeper into an already gluttonous pit, feasting on my anxiety and failure. But I think the biggest mistake I've made, and I realised this quite recently, is that I've been viewing my goals as maps rather than a ship. See, when you're dealing with maps, everything is basically written in stone. The landscape is how it is. There are mountains and there are lakes and rivers carved into the fabric of the existence, and there's nothing you can do other than attempt to traverse the same paths as they've been plotted out. So I've been following the maps other people have laid out for me. Maps that other people plotted, telling me that this is how they achieved what they did in life, and wondering why I was failing. Why could these people traverse these landscapes and I couldn't? So let's look at goal setting in terms of the metaphor of adventuring. If you think of it in terms of venturing, back in the day, people would plot their maps as they went along, and the equipment they had was always different. So if we think of it like this, our vehicles and supplies will never be the same as someone else laying out a map that's already pre-plotted. Some people may have teams of people behind them, whilst others may have no one. Some will have more resources and potentially fewer illnesses or disabilities. So the map plotted by someone who had a team of people behind them, more financial support, and rode a metaphoric private jet will not be as easy to traverse if all you have is a rusty tricycle, no money, and no one else helping you. This weird metaphor helped me stop seeing my goals as maps, but rather pretend it was a ship I was steering. I could visualise where I needed to go, but I know I needed to be more flexible, and rather than beating myself up for not being able to traverse these same paths, I started visualising the curveballs as changing weather forecasts, which forced me to be inventive and carve out a new path accordingly. Yes, maps laid out by other people exist as a guideline, but they're not gospel, and approaching maps as flexibly as possible allows you to employ your imagination and to be more experimental in your own approach. Planning is a tool, not a prison. So what are the strategies I'm doing for goal setting when my life feels really chaotic? The first one is to go back to why, which I know is cliche, but hear me out. Our why is for why we are doing anything in life. And it's so central because it's only when we identify and refocus back on our why that we can then develop a how and a what, the two aspects which help us regain control during the chaos. Simon Sinek calls this the golden circle, and the why is at the core of everything that we do. The why is the reason we get out of bed in the morning, which is something we find harder to find the motivation for when life feels chaotic. If you haven't read Start With Why, it is largely a business book. But if you don't have the time during the busy holidays, you can actually find it on apps such as Shortform, who have sponsored this channel in the past, and I'll leave my link down below in case you're curious. It gives you kind of like summaries of texts that you've already read and you need a refresher on. I just used it for this video because I was like, oh, how does he break it down? I can't really remember. Couldn't find my copy of Why. Found it really useful, just be completely clear. And similarly, it's quite useful as either a refresher or for looking at text that you're debating reading, but you're not really sure if you want to commit to it. It's quite useful, particularly in the self-help industry. So when life feels chaotic, we lose ourselves in the noise of it all. So start taking time to really introspect and connect with your why, which will help you either get back on course or change course entirely if you realise that you're going in a completely wrong direction and that wasn't in line with your why at all, which is what I did with my doctorate. 2, set micro goals. So this is the hardest thing for me to do, so I get it. When life feels chaotic and everything feels important, setting a micro goal still seems impossible and very confusing. What I've chosen to do is to set micro goals which don't directly impact my work, but change my lifestyle. So I've fallen into many bad habits, from bad eating to not exercising or sleeping too long, etc. And all of these bad habits negatively impact my work. So my first task really is to make tiny tweaks, like going to the gym once a week, which is not perfect, but it's better than nothing. Similarly, investing in an alarm clock and setting that across the room rather than using my phone with a snooze button, and then waking up 15 minutes earlier each day and experimenting with healthier food dishes, etc. They're not huge lifestyle changes, nor are they major work changes, but they're incredibly close to home. They're to do with me and how I function. Unless I take care of my body and my personal performance, I can't expect improvements in my external performance. It's only then that I can start setting micro goals for my productivity, giving myself goals to get several podcast episodes recorded and edited. The third one is removing the chaos. Now, let's talk about energy drainers. Sadly, we all have them. Some of us, they exist in the forms of people, habits, and distractions. We have things in our lives which are only adding more stress, and this can be hard to part with, as some of these behaviours may be addictive in nature, or some may involve people and very intimate relationships. So setting boundaries with people is sometimes harder for people than giving a bad habit. But you have to start with saying no to things which don't align with your personal goals, from mindless social media to things cluttering up your physical space, or to too much socialising, or someone expecting too much from you emotionally and physically. Remember when you do this that simplifying isn't selfish, it's self-care. We want to still be there for others, but not at the expense of ourselves. Otherwise, we'll become resentful of everything. We have to hold as much time and compassion for ourselves as we do for others, and during hard times for you, that requires you to communicate more, take more off your plate, and get yourself sorted out before you can extend yourself again. You can't build something great if you're surrounded by chaos, and you have to communicate this with other people. The fourth thing is the power of reflection. So this is when we have to check in on ourselves more regularly and take note of any progress, if any, of internal and external progresses. So you can look at the end of your week, or even at the end of your day, asking yourself what worked and what didn't work. Did you change anything, or did you fail to change something? All of these things that you're documenting is not you documenting your failures, it's collecting data. It's only by collecting data that you can really analyse what's happening in your life, from what you're eating to when you're waking up to when you're working, your energy patterns, everything. Collect as much data as possible in a chaotic world. And the fifth thing is to accept imperfections. I've had to accept that everything I've attempted to do has not fallen into place. Everything that people told me to do, because this is the way to be productive, and this is the way to be progressive, and this is the way to be academic, none of it laid out for myself. And accepting the unpredictability of my own life has been more liberating, even though it has felt a little bit painful for most of the things I've failed at. But my plans going forward don't have to be perfect, they don't have to be Instagrammable, they don't have to fit neatly into a video, but they just have to work enough for me to keep moving forward. So let's bring this round to a full circle. Chaos doesn't have to mean the end of your goals. Whilst I've been very upset and very stressed out in the past couple of weeks about everything falling apart, I have to remind myself that chaos doesn't have to mean the end of my goals. It may mean the end of some of them, but not all of them. But oftentimes it means I have to approach them differently. So what's one small step that you can take towards a goal for this week or for the end of this year? Share it down the comment section down below, because I'd love to cheer you on if you've thought of some things that you want to do, because life feels really chaotic for me right now and I'm sure I'm not alone in it. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking and sharing or subscribing if you'd like to see more of these videos. Thank you as always to my Patreons for supporting both my channels, and I will see you soon for another video. Remember, be happy and healthy, and books save lives, so keep reading.